You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Past episodes of the Authentic Business Adventures program can be found on the podcast link at drawincustomers.com. We are coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Radio Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kateman, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. Today, we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Shree Kalluri of Zerology. Shree, how are you doing today?
Doing very well, James. Thank you very much for having me here.
So, thanks for being on here. Let's see here. I met you when you spoke at 1 Million Cups.
That's true.
Recently, and a month ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And you have a crazy cool business that I'm super impressed by. So, how about you just tell us, for the listeners, just the basics of what Zerology is?
Sure. So, Zerology is all about zero emission living.
Mm-hmm.
So, what that means is we want to reduce or minimize the amount of emissions that are out there, particularly from the transportation sector,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the largest contributor of emissions and thereby reason for the environmental issues what we have been having.
Sure.
So that's what we are focusing on is how do we tame the beast? How do we reduce transportation related emissions,
Okay.
particularly in our hometown, Madison?
All right. So, is the idea that you will be starting in Madison and then branch out?
Exactly. So by Madison, by the way, I mean like greater Madison area, Dane County.
Sure.
And once we solve the problem here,
Mm-hmm.
the idea is to develop a blueprint that can be taken and replicated in other parts of the country and
Sure.
the world.
So, let me ask you, I guess you have a segue to location. Why Madison? Is it just because it's easy for you or because we have winter and this is a good test?
That's a good one too, right? So actually, you may be thinking you're kidding, but yeah, winter is actually electric vehicles, if that's what we're using to eliminate emissions. They have a challenge in winter, the battery,
Oh, yeah.
the battery loss and things like that, so that need to be accommodated and accounted for, kind of a thing. But taking a step back, why Madison? I came to Madison about 20 years back.
Okay.
When I started my earlier company called Forte Research, I was an entrepreneur, healthcare technology company. That's what I started, and before that, when I visited Madison, I fell in love with it, and this is where I wanted to raise a family and call it home.
Sure.
That's what I had done for the last 20 years.
All right.
And this is home now. And as they say, cleanliness starts at home. So let's clean
Gotcha.
up Madison first, and
All right, that's
then
fair.
we can take anywhere else.
That's
and
fair.
also, by the way, as a community, I think we are more environmentally conscious.
Yeah,
I think
would
Madison,
say so.
Yeah, Madison, the local community has always been more sensitive towards global issues.
Mm-hmm.
They were not all about themselves. They always were, what would you say, more forward thinking.
Sure.
And thinking about bigger problems and challenges and how we can make a positive impact in the world, whether we promote walking or bicycling and all those things, or towards a greater good and health.
Sure.
Right.
That's very fair. You were in the right city to experiment with something like this in regards to that, right? You have the environmental aspect of it. Because there's challenges, there's super hot days and
Yes.
there are definitely super cold days, and there's snow. So that's, I guess, like you were alluding to.
It
there,
almost
right?
feels like climate changes are real.
You know, so Christmas just happened, right?
Right.
25th, right? A few days ago, and like we were talking about off the air, it was definitely a brown, actually,
Yeah.
arguably a green Christmas, right? The grass hasn't even turned brown
Absolutely.
yet.
Today I was seeing it is green.
Yeah, but in October, right, Halloween, it was snowing, I remember. So I feel like Wisconsin maybe isn't the greatest place in the world to judge
True.
the whole climate change thing, because the rule is if you don't like the weather in Wisconsin, just wait a minute, and it'll just change, right? So, but I can understand climate change seems to be a big deal, and zero emission, that sounds pretty cool. So how are you getting this done?
So the whole idea is how do we do that? So basically, by tackling the biggest transportation opportunities. Today, if you look at it in the morning, the commuter traffic, most of the vehicles are driven by one single driver. There's
Sure.
nobody else.
Dramatically so.
Dramatically. I think Madison ranks around 63-65% of the commuters are going solo in the morning.
Sure.
So that's one area what we can tackle.
I would have guessed that it would be higher percentage than that.
You think, but good news is though Madison is also a little bit better than the national average on utilizing the metro. We
Okay.
have more than little about 10%, and bicycling albeit in winter it is pretty low. But
Sure.
during spring and summer, people do use bicycles.
Okay.
So that's one big area. Similarly, as we were thinking about, I explored a lot of different areas where transportation is predominant. And so where can we go? What is the first thing what we want to tackle
Sure.
if we want to make a big first impact?
Okay.
That's when we kind of narrowed down onto shared transportation.
All right.
And we looked at who is providing that, and there are a couple of different taxi cab companies locally
Sure.
who do that effectively. One is Badger, another is Green Cab.
Okay.
So for historically, what they've been doing is they're providing shared rides, meaning they put more than one person in the car
Sure.
who are not in the immediate family circle and what have you.
Okay.
Two strangers sharing a car. Thereby, their idea is to reduce the amount of expense they are incurring.
Sure.
More economical choice. But the beauty of that model is if we can take that vehicle and make it electric vehicle and put multiple people in the car,
Right.
that our insight was we can take away so many more vehicles from the street.
Right.
That means not only we can make more positive contribution faster, but also positively impact congestion.
Oh, sure.
Right? Minimize congestion.
Right.
Uber and Lyft, though they provide shared rides, but most of their rides are solo, and unfortunately they have increased the congestion.
Yes.
There is at least evidence that they have done, though they contest that. There is at least a solid argument that Uber and Lyft has increased congestion. Now, with going after transportation like choices like this, so what we did is we partnered with Green Cab. We took an entire fleet of Toyota hybrids, which were good, and we replaced them with Tesla Model 3s, and the entire transition is over. And now we're so happy to see over the last 2 months itself, we have significantly impacted reduction in the emissions from
Really?
35 vehicles going on the street carrying
Yeah.
hundreds of passengers every day.
So, how many do you have out now?
34 in the Green Cab.
34 Tesla 3s are rolling
Yeah.
around Madison now.
Yes.
And they replaced Priuses, is that
Toyota
right?
Priuses,
Okay.
what they had. But the Priuses, once though they were amazing when they started, as they age, just like any other internal combustion engine,
Sure.
the vehicles get a little bit poorer, the emissions get larger, kind of a thing.
Sure.
So that's why we saw an opportunity to put in a brand new electric vehicles, which will only get better with time.
Sure.
Because as the grid, the source of electric energy is getting more sustainable and cleaner,
Right.
the cars get much more cleaner. In other words, the electric vehicles today
Sure.
behave much better tomorrow and
Right.
after than an internal combustion
All
car
right.
would.
So you raised so many questions there. I'm trying to. Okay, one. Let's talk about cost. Toyota Prius, is whatever. I'm under the impression that a Tesla is more expensive initially. Is that safe to say?
Yes,
mean-
absolutely safe to say.
Okay, so Tesla Model 3 is not the $100,000 deal.
No,
but
it is more closer to the 50,000.
Okay.
So actually, you can get it for 40,000 plus. But we chose, because going back to Wisconsin weather,
Yeah.
we wanted to have the safest vehicle.
Sure.
So we did all-wheel drive, dual motor vehicles, which are like
Oh, I didn't even know.
expensive.
Okay, I'm out of touch.
Yes.
So as far as vehicles go, I'm slacking there.
So here, that's what we need in Wisconsin, because we don't want people to skid. We want people to be very, very comfortable and confident in these vehicles.
Right.
Right, to a point where the vehicle what we are using here is the safest vehicle on the street today. I kid you not.
Really?
The safest. If you go and look up, you'll find it's off the charts on many safety factors
Yeah.
compared to any other car that is out there. But to your main point, though, yes, it is more expensive. So the cars were closer to $50,000. But where the unit level economics work is because these vehicles, though they are more expensive to acquire, what the ongoing maintenance and operation costs.
Well, it's a fraction, right? It's on the verge
So
of negligible.
Exactly. That.
I mean, you have tires and
Yep. Yes,
I suppose an
naturally.
air freshener every once in a while or
Right.
something.
Exactly. Even the brakes do not wear out as fast because
Sure.
regenerative,
It's regenerative.
braking kind
Sure.
of a thing. No oil changes, none of those things,
Sure.
right? And most of it is software updates. So vehicles behave. They last a long time. There is evidence that many of the vehicles, Tesla Model 3s, have crossed 400,000 miles. There's
400. Where are these people
400,000.
going?
Yeah, good point. There are other taxi companies like in Norway and other places.
Yeah.
They have utilized, and in Florida, some people are doing.
Sure.
Though I think in US we are pretty much Green Cab is the first one what we took entire fleet. But there are a lot of people have done experiments, and there are other ones like Tesloop who have run cars between Los Angeles and Nevada and other places for
Okay.
a long, long time.
Sure.
Many of them have crossed 400, 500,000 miles
Wow.
successfully. Yeah,
That's impressive for any vehicle.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
cool.
So it's a long play.
All
My
right.
point is,
Sure.
you can make the unit level economics work,
Right.
but it has to be over a protracted period of time.
Yeah, I'm
to make
thinking
it kind of-
in the end you're talking what a 10, even if you say $20,000 difference, if you're not having to pay for gas,
Mhm.
electricity is much less expensive. You can probably make up that 10, 20 grand in a matter of months minimum or maybe maximum.
At least theoretically, yes. That's actually one of the things we can cover is some of the challenges
Sure.
to make this happen.
Oh,
One
by
of-
all means.
One of them is the electricity,
Okay.
right? So that's actually turns out to be one of the biggest problem, right?
Electricity initially getting it or just getting
or
the...
the entire charging infrastructure,
Sure.
the logistics of it, as well as the cost aspect of it.
Sure.
Right. So if you is this a good time we can?
Yeah,
talk
now's
about-
perfect time.
Okay. So cars, let's say that unit level economics are working out, and you're able to bring in money to invest in it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you acquire the vehicles. The next point is, first of all, what vehicles you want to buy,
Sure.
and the second is how do you charge them?
Yeah.
Right? Charging infrastructure.
Because then you're talking with a normal, let's say a Prius or something
Yeah.
like the gas car. If you're low on gas, you just go to the gas station.
Right, and there's
5
so many
minutes
of them.
later, yeah,
Right?
you got
There's
your
so
gas.
many of them. You can just pump
Sure.
gas anywhere.
Which for most people, I would say, the electric vehicle, you always hear people complaining about range.
range
But
anxiety.
just like you're going 5 miles to work each day,
Right,
it's not
exactly.
like you're...
That's an excellent point, right? So if you're an individual car owner for an electric car, honestly, it's nothing different than your Android phone or an iPhone.
Sure.
You go in the night and just plug it in.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I had my own car, I used to plug it in once on Friday.
Okay,
I had a range of about, I used to charge about 280 miles.
Okay.
My commute was, as you were talking about, it's just about 10 miles
Sure.
each way. So it lasted, one charge lasted the whole week for me because it was
Oh, funny.
primarily
Okay.
for work.
Sure.
However, once you start thinking about taxi cabs,
Yeah, where you're
it's
constantly
an
moving.
entirely different, right?
Yeah.
So as opposed to I doing 200 miles in a week, a taxi cab can do more than 200, even probably some days more than 300
Oh, I bet.
in a single day.
Sure.
So all of a sudden, you need to now figure out charging, which is not a problem for personal use,
Right.
becomes a big problem,
Sure.
right? So what that means is, first of all, I need to look for vehicles which has got longer range.
Right.
Imagine you've got a vehicle which will only give 100 miles. Every few, hours, you need to stop and charge for hours.
Not ideal.
Right? Not ideal.
Because you still have employees driving these things,
Exactly.
right?
So you need to find cars which have got maximum range you can find.
Right.
So that's one challenge. That
Okay.
limits the number of car options what you have to buy. The cost also. Right?
What, you have like 2 options? Or what?
Right. Now you may have in Wisconsin probably 3 or 4 kind of a thing.
Are you talking
right?
like a Nissan Leaf?
Nissan Leaf is another one.
Is
and
there
you
a
got a
Focus?
Chevy Bolt.
Oh, sure. Chevy Bolt. Okay.
Right. But if you go to California and other places, what are called CARB states, which follow California's Air Resource Board
Sure.
standards, there you got more choices because the automobile manufacturers are mandated
Oh.
to sell electric vehicles. Unless they do, they'll not be allowed to sell other kinds of ICE vehicles.
Okay.
Because of that.
Sure.
They are forced, so Kia and others have got a lot of other vehicles that are
Sure.
there. But they're not readily offered here. Though
Sure.
we keep pushing them, we are still waiting.
Oh,
kind of a thing.
interesting.
So the choices are limited.
Sure.
Right. Okay, let's go beyond that and say, okay, now that we get a car. So our cars, what we use, have got a full range of about 320 miles, which is good.
Sure.
But still, we end up having to charge it during
bet.
during the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, the best way to charge vehicles is in the night. You connect them. It will take like 6 or 8 hours on a slow charger.
Electricity is cheaper then.
Cheaper than
And
the
the
middle of the
it's
night.
probably better for the battery life to do slower.
Absolutely. Better for the battery life and the utilities charge you lesser fee during
Sure.
the night, off-peak time kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That works great as long as one charge is enough for you. But
Okay.
given that the capacity is not big enough, now we need to charge it again during the course of the day.
Oh, sure.
That's where it becomes untenable because the current pricing models and structures of the utility companies have got something called peak demand fees and other kinds of things,
Okay.
which makes it unsustainable.
Sure.
So that's the biggest challenge we deal
All
with
right.
is then we need to think through this differently when it comes to the transportation infrastructure.
Sure.
Charging infrastructure that is targeting whether it is fleets or the metros or the buses or the trucks
Mm-hmm.
have to think about the models differently.
Sure.
Right? however we look at it, you got to figure out a way of bringing down the cost.
Sure.
Otherwise, if it is comparable to almost like a gas car,
Right.
or even if half of it, still it is pretty darn expensive.
Right.
For the unit level economics to work for electric vehicles, it has to be more like 5 cents, not 12 cents,
All right.
kind of a thing
Sure.
per gallon,
Sure.
or per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Right, so those are the things what we need to figure out.
Sure.
So we went through our tough learning and
All right.
work with the utility companies to understand how they charge. And sometimes I feel that it is calculus, and I barely made through calculus in school.
Sure. It's a very large algorithm.
Yeah, we got to. It's hard to figure it out, but working with them and having multiple conversations to understand how it all works out, and then figuring out as an entrepreneur, how do you work around those so that we charge when it is not going to be peak time.
Sure.
That way, it is a win for us that we are not significantly putting in costs, as well as we do not want to do it in the middle of the day, thereby becoming a burden on the grid.
Right.
And if they need to run peaker plants, we are not really making a positive impact.
Sure.
Right? We do not
They're just
want
throwing
them.
more coal, right?
Yeah, exactly. We don't want them to do that.
Right.
But truth be told, the coal, as much coal is still predominantly used, and probably Wisconsin will be closer to 50%. But every year, all the utilities are into it. There's a lot more investments that are going into wind and solar and
Sure.
other sustainable energies. As I said, it may not be a panacea today, but it is moving in the right direction.
Right.
And our goal is, instead of waiting for until everything is done, we wanted to expedite the change.
Right.
So that's why we're
Start.
just biting the bullet and moving forward.
Sure.
And saying that, yep, it is not 100% ideal.
Right.
But hey,
It's better than what we
60%.
had.
Yeah, exactly. 60% is better than
Sure.
waiting for the 100%.
Right. That's fair. That's totally fair. You can't always wait till it's perfect. I guess
Certainly.
arguably you rarely have to wait or can wait
For
till it's
now, yeah.
perfect. Right.
Maybe we may not have an opportunity to wait that long.
Sure. But you're also increasing demand for the solution where without doing anything, there's
Exactly.
no demand.
Right. There's a lot of teaching and getting people educated and people embracing this change.
Sure.
All that takes time. So we are doing this. And meanwhile, my hope is this: the charging infrastructure will be figured out. More vehicles will be available. The cost for a vehicle will drop. So all this, there will be a perfect storm. All these
Sure.
things will be converging.
Right.
But we, as an entrepreneurs are those ones who do not wait for the perfect opportunity.
Right.
They just create kind of a thing. So that's
Right.
what we are doing, is investing and moving forward and working hard
Right.
to make it possible to do this at scale.
I like that. So essentially right now Zerology is an electric cab company, is it?
So it's more than that. So basically, Zerology has got does three things, right?
Okay.
First is the electric vehicles.
Yep.
We are acquiring a lot of electric vehicles.
Sure.
And we offer those vehicles in three different models.
Okay.
Right. So initially, yes, absolutely, we started with the taxi cab.
Okay.
Because that's where we thought we can make the biggest impact.
Sure.
The second one, what we are working on, and we are very, very close to launching a pilot in the next week or two.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Is,
Perfect timing.
Yes, it is. Shared cars. Basically, if you remember, back in 2010-11, we had community cars here.
Yes.
Right.
Was there
that-
Zipcar or something like that?
They have been acquired by Zipcar.
Okay.
And Zipcar has been operating here and elsewhere.
Yeah.
So we are introducing a similar kind of a model where you got a technology, you can register, and then you can rent the cars for hour or two or however long you want,
All right.
or a day, short-term rentals, and partnering with businesses and locating with either businesses or the apartment buildings so that they're available where you need to have them.
All right.
So that's the next big thing what we are doing.
Sure.
And the third one is actually using them as fleet replacement.
Oh.
We can actually offer these for short-term rentals, whether it is for private businesses who historically have been buying and owning their own half a dozen or dozen vehicles.
Sure.
Or other transportation providers who are in similar kind of a business. They've got the drivers, but they are buying vehicles. Or the city fleet, where they own about 1,400 vehicles. We want to partner with everybody.
Sure.
Make these zero-emission vehicles available so that
Sure.
they do not need to take on the burden of capital expense, but translate it into operating expense. Thereby, they even can get rid of some of their older cars and bring back the cash into their businesses
Okay.
rather than constantly investing.
Sure.
So we're figuring out models. So what this means is, not only we're investing heavily in vehicles, then the second part is the charging infrastructure, what I said.
Yeah.
So now we are working with all the utilities to figure out where we need to locate our charging infrastructure. We've partnered with the Teslas, and we're in conversations with ChargePoint and others to put it in charging infrastructure.
Sure.
And the trifecta, the third one is the technology.
Okay.
We are fundamentally a technology company in transportation business. So there's a lot of apps that are being developed, software that is being developed.
Perfect. That's what I was trying to hope you were talking about.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm a tech entrepreneur. Unless there is a technology component,
Right.
there is only so much of difference what you can make.
Sure.
By utilizing technology, we can maximize the utilization of these cars.
Right.
That's what we want to do. It is not about number of vehicles, and it is not even about vehicle miles traveled. It is truly about rider miles traveled. So that means
rider miles traveled. Okay.
For every mile the vehicle is going, our ideal, our nirvana is putting more people in that vehicle.
Oh, I see what you're... So it's a multiplier there. Okay. So car travels 1 mile with one person. That's a 1.
If you put
1 mile with 3 people in there. Now we got a 3. Okay. And the car traveled the same distance.
That's the force factor.
All right. Sure. I like that. All right. And you have software that is going to be released?
We have multiple components of software, right?
Okay.
One is for the green cab.
Mm-hmm.
Historically they had their own software.
Okay.
Now we are kind of redoing the software to bring it to the latest and the greatest kind of a thing. We are optimizing the software. Soon we'll be able to give them our software which they can run to run their cabs.
Nice.
The second one is for the car share. We are developing already our software, and also we partner with fleet management software what we are using.
Okay.
And then for going forward, we need to actually redevelop most of these components, because we also want to interface with other modes of transportation, like for example metro.
Sure.
We want to seamlessly interconnect. Our holy grail is to create one app which allows people to consume all kinds of transportation as they please, as they need, whether you want to rent a car,
I like that.
Call a cab, or rent a bicycle, or hop on a metro. You should be able to do all this very, very seamlessly, right? So that's what we want to do. Is technology plays a big role. And last bit is the data analysis. We want to analyze and understand where the pickups and the drop-offs are happening, and where the vehicle densities are there, so that we can be very smart about where to locate the vehicles, so that we can minimize what is called deadheading, vehicles going, just the driver going 10 miles to pick up a ride.
Oh, gotcha.
Versus finding somebody who is close by, giving the ride to them.
Sure. You know, it's interesting. I just picked up a vehicle in North Carolina. And I had this whole thing in my head. It's like last mile's the hardest, right? Mm-hmm. Where I flew from, Madison to North Carolina, Raleigh, whatever. And then I have to find a ride from Raleigh to the coast where this dealership was.
Okay.
2-hour drive, something like that. And I looked, okay, it can't be that hard. It's 2019, right? It's going to be 2020.
Yeah.
And I just need to get 100 plus miles from here to there, from a big city to a, I don't know, touristy city where the dealership was, right?
Go ahead.
It had a military base pretty close to it, so I thought, what are the little soldiers and all that kind of stuff that want to get home? There's got to be a way to get from A to B, right? Very easily. I could not find a way to save my life. There's an airport pretty close to this town, so the dealership said, hey, just fly into this airport. I looked, it was like $1,000 ticket, right? Instead of 50 to Raleigh or whatever it was. And that ticket, the airport was so small, they only had flights going there 2 times a week. And they were like routing through Denver. It was just crazy. Yep. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a bus. Couldn't find a bus. Is there a train? Can't find a train. I could look at one-way rental cars. Yeah. But that was, holy cow, you want one-way rental?
Oh, yes.
That's bizarre.
Yes.
So I was thinking, oh, my gosh. And I'm looking on Google Maps, right, hoping to see what you're talking about. Yeah. This is how you're going to get from A to B, right? You're going to have to take a few modes of transportation. Right. But this is what it's going to look like. Nothing. So I was thinking, oh, my gosh.
True.
I need the solution, right? And how many times does this happen? But I bet it's more often than people are thinking.
True. That is so true. And particularly in our country, this is a bigger problem because public transportation is not widely adopted.
Oh, it's terrible.
But there are also other interesting and intriguing models, right? So now you can rent peer-to-peer car rentals are available through programs like Turo. Companies like Turo are offering. Sure. But then there is other one, I think it is called in Europe, called BlaBlaCar. So basically,
BlaBlaCar?
BlaBlaCar, I think. That's what it is.
I need to start a tech company just so I can name it.
So, yeah, it's fun, isn't it? So there, what they do is, it is more like a portal where you go, let's say you want to go from here to there. Sure. You go ahead and kind of register there. And then there are people who may be driving in that direction. Yeah. And you can just hop on a ride and go, and probably you pay them some amount of money either.
Right.
So in some cases, it is just paying for the gas and food. In other cases, they say, okay, you need to pay me $50 kind
Sure.
of thing. So somebody who is going there in your direction.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of modes of
This
transportation that is
sounds-
happening. Right?
sounds
Shared
like-
riding.
Technically advanced hitchhiking.
Yeah, exactly. So Wiz does that too, right? So for commuters, if you are a commuter, either you're a rider or you want to drive,
Sure.
you can go ahead and list and say, hey, I'm going to go from here to there. And if anybody is interested, you can sign up. And then I can set, okay, you need to give me a couple of dollars.
Sure.
They encourage you not to charge it as a ride, but only to recover your expenses kind
Right.
of thing. But there are a lot of intriguing models people are trying out.
Huh.
So the technology plays an interesting role.
Yeah.
Right? So the trick here is to do either point of convergence to the destination,
Mm-hmm.
taking a lot of people who are going to the same place, or people who are originating in the same place, or ideally, if you do closest to both,
Right.
then you're not zigzagging
Right.
through the entire cities and wasting everybody's time.
Right.
You're maybe making at the most another stop on the
Okay.
way by the roadside and picking up another person,
Sure.
and then quickly going to the destination.
All right.
Those are the models which are kind of intriguing and coming together.
Sure.
There are companies like Via who have been doing that effectively. So there's a lot of opportunity.
Nice. That sounds pretty clever. So I wanted to challenge you a little bit.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
In America, people love their cars.
Yes, they do.
Right, almost to a fault,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely one of the people that's to a fault. And we just love I remember the GM Goodwrench, right?
Yep.
It's not just your car, it's your freedom.
Mhm.
Where people love not being around anybody else.
Yep.
You're surrounded by traffic,
Mhm.
but inside your car, you're listening to whatever it is you want to listen to. You're not having to listen or have somebody else eating next to you or anything. Like that it's just, I don't know. It's enjoyable being in the car on your
Yeah.
own. Not necessarily enjoyable stuck in traffic. So I understand solving that. But how do you fix or solve people's
Excellent question.
infatuation with their car?
Absolutely. So there are two facets to it, right? So one is just let's tackle that first thing of what we taught America is that freedom is a car and a liter of gas or a
Sure.
gallon of gas in your
Right.
in your trunk kind of a thing.
Right.
That was fantastic story when we had so much of roadways and very, very few cars.
Right.
So freedom was exactly that, right? You hop in your car and keep driving.
Yep.
Today, you hop in your car and you got 3 gallons of gas and you're sitting on the belt line,
You're just waiting.
kind of waiting.
Yeah.
So it is not pleasure. It is a pain.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting frustrated and people are getting distracted. They're texting and talking, and it has been a very, very hard experience. In other words, transportation when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Commuting. Let's take commuting.
Sure.
Nobody drives their car for commuting as a pleasure. They do it because they have to,
Correct.
because there is no other alternative.
They might do what they can to make it pleasurable, but it's not. I would love to get stuck in
So the
traffic
same
for
thing
fun
what
today,
you are
right?
talking about, if you can put on your headphones and open your book or a laptop, wouldn't you rather sit in your seat and do something rather than having to be in front of the steering wheel
Yes.
for commuting?
Yes.
So in other words, in that kind of a context, transportation, you're not picking it up for pleasure, you're picking it up for convenience, to solve a problem, right? Then there are other kind of contexts. So first and foremost, we need to understand people consume transportation for different reasons.
Sure.
So now go back to your thing about doing for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a weekend or something like that, or you want to go somewhere to
Right.
Door County or Upper Peninsula or what have you.
Sure.
Then here is a question I have for you. Absolutely fantastic. You drive. Would you rather have access to 6 different cars based on your mood? One day you can take a Porsche, another day you can take a pickup truck.
Oh, you have
How
my
many different
attention
vehicles?
now.
How
All
many
right.
different vehicles can you afford to buy? You get fascinated and
Sure.
you buy one vehicle.
Right.
At the minimum for it to break even, you need to keep it for 5 years.
Sure.
Imagine now, for regular transportation, you use transportation services like whatever it is, and for when you want to ride, you just rent a car for a few hours or a day,
Yeah.
and then you got to pick whichever
All right.
vehicle. So then you got the nirvana,
Sure.
right? And it will cost you probably third or half of what it would otherwise cost you. An average American spends $9,000 on owning a car per year.
I believe. Sure.
Right? If
Sure.
you use all these modes of transportation, best case scenario, it may be 3,000, but even in a very conservative scenario, for $4,500, you can take care of not owning a car
Really?
and living your thing and renting a car as you need it, kind of a thing.
Wow.
Unit level economics work very well once you get over that emotional attachment kind
All
of
right.
thing. So my hope, because of that, I believe, as more transportation choices are showing up, what will happen is 3-car garages will start becoming 2-car garages, and 2-car garages will become 1-car garage.
Oh my
because
gosh.
there are still people.
You're breaking my heart a little bit here. I only say that because I used to be a mechanic and I have a 5-car garage. So I'm always working on something project-wise. But I understand the majority of people are not
But yeah,
in
there
that
still
realm.
will be that, right? The people
Sure.
who would love to own few cars, let them. Probably now they can actually enjoy the ride.
Sure.
Because there are not enough cars on the street.
So that is perfect segue to another challenge, right? I see this kind of ebb and flow, right?
Yep.
There's a ton of cars on the road now, only getting to be more because we keep making people, right? And I would say that arguably public transportation seems to not be improving, right? Even though we have the technology, we just, as a society, for whatever reason, we don't like it.
Yep.
I don't understand that at all. I was just in Los Angeles a couple months ago, and I was expecting, like I heard there's a subway,
Yeah.
so I was expecting that, the subway goes everywhere, but it totally does not. And I was thinking, this is Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
This is a huge city, super populated, and it's in California,
Yeah.
right? So, but this, I don't know what it had, like 10 stops or something like that on a very strict strip. It blew my mind.
Yep.
And then I learned that they had those cable cars, and the car companies literally burned them.
But on the positive side, though, they just committed to completely transitioning their entire metro to
Did they really?
electric buses
Oh, super
by
cool.
2030.
Okay.
They're making significant investments.
Sure.
Also, there's a private company called Green Commuter
Okay.
in LA. They actually provide electric vehicles for commuters for van pooling.
Oh.
And they have been very successful,
Okay.
putting 4, 5, 6 people. So you subscribe. It can cost based on the number of people in the vehicle,
Sure.
either $240 or $360 per month.
Okay.
Employer provides some subsidy, and the people are providing.
Sure.
And a lot of people love it because LA traffic is horrible.
Oh, it's insane.
Right? So
It's
you'd rather
insane.
enjoy sitting in the back seat. Kind
Plus
of a thing.
gas is,
Yeah.
it was at least double what we pay
True,
here.
So true. Actually, I'm just interviewing somebody. He just wanted to get out of LA and come here to Madison.
Sure.
He says there's no traffic kind of a thing.
It was like
So-
a whole different world out there because I saw the amount of traffic and I saw the price of gas. And I remember there was this bartender complaining about the price of gas. And I thought, can you imagine how much more traffic there would be if gas was cheaper?
True. So going back to your point about the public transportation and
Sure.
utilization, right? So one thing that I'm thinking about is it's not the more number of vehicles, but what I'm wondering is if the types of vehicles, more types of vehicles hit the streets, like you got regular 5-seaters, what if you have 9-seaters and 15-seaters kind of a thing?
Okay.
Gradually what you could do is, let's take an example of the microtransit or minibuses.
Right.
So our metro is used right now 10 in Madison about 10% of the times, primarily between the transfer points is the main thing what we're doing. What if we have minibuses or shuttles and we solve the first mile, last mile problem and
Sure.
either taking people from West Point to Mount Oreb or Sun Prairie to the city center.
Sure.
And what if we do that and do it with electric buses, electric vehicles,
All right.
and connect them to the metro?
Sure.
And two things what you have done. One, increase the reach of the metro, right, to the ones who are in the far-lying areas or to the disenfranchised. And all of a sudden, you are creating an economic development opportunity by bringing in people into the city or taking them to where the work is, right? And on top of it, be the feeder system for the metro.
Sure.
And imagine if the metro utilization goes from 10% to 18%.
That's a big move.
The amount of impact.
Yeah,
that
very
will
big move.
create.
Sure.
So that's what I'm hoping is by utilizing different modes of transportation and combining different things and interconnecting them, right? That is A to B. How do I get to A to
Sure.
B? Whether most economical way or most environmentally conscious way. If you have time, maybe you choose more of an environmentally conscious. Even if you're starved for time and you want to
Sure.
quickly get there, it should provide all the opportunities and different things. I truly believe there are a lot of different needs for different times of the day for different people. Right? Or even for the same person in
Right.
different times of the month.
Yeah,
Where
sure.
you want to go and what you want to do kind of thing. So I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, and that's why it is truly a multi-stakeholder problem.
Yeah. Oh,
It really
definitely.
takes
Definitely.
a village.
No, I see this as being a very large problem to solve. That you guys are doing a great job tackling it, and it's interesting to watch, right?
Starting to, yeah.
Because like I live in Sun Prairie.
Yeah.
I go to 1 million cups at Starting Block at Dream Bank there, and I'm essentially following the bus coming from the new park and ride in Sun Prairie.
Yeah.
Right? And so by the time people get on the bus and the park and ride, I'm already cruising on 151. But by the time I get parked and everything and make it into starting block, the people that were on that bus are coming in the starting block same time.
Huh.
Right? And they were able to actually text without crashing, maybe read a great book, doing something outside of having to concentrate on driving. Right? The assumption being that most people driving are concentrating on driving. That's a strong, hopeful assumption.
Yeah.
So that was impressive, right? But there was a clear destination there, and there was a clear starting point, right? So that was cool. But I wonder, and this is one of those things I'm going through my head, like what's going to happen from a devil's advocate point of view. Let's just say that your model takes off, and a bunch of people are using the short buses, let's say the electric short buses, and they're getting to where they need to go and everything's cool. That's going to greatly reduce the amount of traffic. And then someone like me is going to be like, I can take my motorcycle without dying today.
Yes. And
now I'm going to jump in and we're going to add more traffic then, right? Possibly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like an ebb and flow, and now we got to solve that problem.
But then by the way, I also have a motorbike.
Nice.
Mine is a zero emissions motorcycle though.
Oh, you just got cooler.
I got an electric bike.
A Harley, or what did you get?
No, it's called Zero FX from California.
Oh, that's magical.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We should go for a ride.
Definitely. I am so intrigued. That's this crazy tangent, right?
Yep, we will do that. But you
just
know what,
the wind noise.
That's beautiful.
Oh, magical.
So we got these thousands and thousands of miles of asphalt, right? So why not? Why not people, whether they're taking their Porsche or they're taking their motorbike or whatever you have, let that opportunities be there.
Sure.
But let's not make it as a requirement. It
All
should
right.
be pleasure.
Sure.
Rather than...
That's fair.
By the way, a lot of people in LA ride motorbikes to work. Because LA allows you to lane split. That means you do not need to be stuck behind a car.
That scared the bejesus out of me.
It does.
When we were on the highway, that scared me as a passenger because you get the window down and all of a sudden they're like, wow. So... But that also scared me from watching it as a motorcycle rider. I'm like, we're going to watch somebody
opens the door and you're done.
Oh, my gosh. It was crazy to watch.
I did go on Pacific Coastal Highway starting from San Francisco to LA. The first 2 hours, it was like nerve-wracking.
Sure.
Right, going there. Then I got used to it. And
then you're just like...
started doing like a Californian kind of thing. Right? So, but my hope is this, right? So we will have less congestion. That means less emissions. That means more mental health.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, that's fair.
It's truly frustrating experience.
Expanding beyond environment.
Right. So going back to your example, the guys who were sitting on the bus to go to starting block were relaxing and doing whatever they're doing, whereas you had to constantly pay attention to the traffic kind of a thing, right? So by releasing you from having to be that, you can, I think overall mental health will improve. I truly believe that by tackling the commuter problem, everything will start becoming better. Right? People will be more productive. And by connecting the first mile and last mile, we can increase the employment opportunities for people.
Right.
We can increase the value, ROI of the current investments we already made in the metro.
Sure.
Right. The buses are there irrespective of whether 2 people or 25 people.
Right.
Why don't we kind of get them to at least 15 people rather than 2
That would be
people,
fantastic.
Right. Kind of a thing.
I bet Metro would love that.
Yeah. So
I would hope that they would love that.
That's what it is. I think the first time when technology was utilized, it was very contentious, right?
Sure.
So ride-sharing companies went and we picked up fights with every city, broke all the regulations, so that kind of a thing. But now it is more about people are recognizing it is truly a multi-stakeholder problem. We need to come together and work together to solve this problem.
So let's go back to electric vehicles.
Yes.
Because I think there's some technology there that we didn't, I guess that you didn't solve for us,
Sure.
right? You got the cab. It bangs out 300 plus miles in a day.
Yeah.
Are you charging them midday now, or are they?
So both. What we're trying to do is basically we have enough number of cars that we completely charge them through the night. But to get more cars charged, what we had done is invested in fast chargers.
Gotcha.
So instead of having all slow chargers, instead of, let's say, 20 slow chargers, each one taking 10 kilowatts, that is 200. Instead, if I put 4 fast chargers together, which are taking 150, that every hour or hour and a half, I can charge 4 cars.
Gotcha.
So that means through the same maximum load, I can create much larger throughput. Kind of thing. That's an approach what we have taken. Still, we will need to have some level of charging during the day. What we are trying to do is cut it into half or the 1/4, do the bare minimum that is required.
Right.
So if you have sufficient number of cars,
Right.
by the morning, by the time peak starts,
Right.
you have excess number of cars completely charged.
All right.
So the amount of additional cars you need to charge during the day will
Sure.
come down dramatically.
Okay.
That is the answer, because if you think about it, electric cars are nothing but battery on wheels.
Yeah.
So you're charging it when that is cheaper
Sure.
and using it when it is more expensive,
Sure.
both environmentally and
All
economically.
right. And I imagine that charge in the middle of the day doesn't have to be a full charge.
Right, we
'Cause you're
try to
adding
minimize
100 miles or
right.
something
and
like
also
that.
the rate at which you charge, so that you're not putting additional burden on the grid.
Sure.
Right, peak is the problem. The reason
Right.
they put in peak charges is everybody turning on everything.
Sure.
So that means
They get home, turn on every light they have in their house.
So during the daytime, it's more like the industry
Sure.
and the offices kind of a thing, right? That's what is killing. So we do not want to increase the burden.
Right.
So we need to do this, but because we are fleet and having sufficient number of vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
basically you're using the battery as the backup storage.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's the way to do it. Right?
Sure.
And on top of it, we are actually evaluating and applying for permits to get. We'll put in a building with solar.
Oh,
So
nice.
that then we can use actually solar energy
Sure.
for whatever we need during the daytime to charge the cars. That way we do not need to be a burden. And ideal nirvana would be if we can be off the grid during the peak time.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it, right? We are putting
sounds fantastic.
sustainable energy from solar into the vehicles during the day.
Sure.
During the night time, when the demand is not peaking on the grid, that is what we're using, kind of a thing. That way, we are doing the right thing by the environment
Right.
and making it economically feasible to operate at scale.
Sure. Nice. You got to get a hydroelectric dam or something like
True.
that.
Unfortunately, we ran out of space in the U.S. We do not have too much more space for hydroelectric.
I imagine that's pretty limited, I imagine.
We used all the opportunity what we had. That's what I hear.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that blows my mind. I feel like there's room. There's still
Should
gravity
be,
out
right?
there. Right.
We have got a big country here.
So, do you mind if we talk about you personally?
Sure.
So, I imagine you're motivated to solve this because it's a tech company, it's a challenge, you're an entrepreneur. But I imagine there's something else going on that drives you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I've been an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurial things, big problems always attracted me.
Sure.
But this naturally fits that criteria of a big problem kind of
Safe
a
to
thing.
say.
Right. So the bigger thing that why this particular opportunity was, about 3 years back, I really got into realizing the very precarious state of our environment and global climate. And realization that what happens in one part of the world doesn't just impact that part, it's a global thing.
Totally.
So how we behave, how we consume, what kind of emissions we put out there doesn't just impact life of in Wisconsin or in the US, it is impacting everywhere, irrespective of whether rich countries or poor countries kind of thing. So that bothered me significantly. That's when I kind of gave up my regular car and got into electric vehicle because I wanted to do something. Then when I saw the car share, ride share program, I realized, wow, not even having a vehicle, but sharing a vehicle, that was also quite intriguing.
Sure.
Metro. And then finally I came to the realization that if I don't have a car, and if I can share rides in electric vehicle, then that would be the maximizing the impact. That's when
Sure.
I sold my cars and I don't own a car, and
Right.
this idea came together.
Huh.
And the second part was towards the end of last year, I was thinking that as I was getting ready to exit from my earlier company, what I started 20 years back, I was reflecting on what kind of opportunities I wanted to pursue.
Sure.
That's where I got the clarity that whatever I do from this point in my life, I wanted to have social impact.
All right.
So what are the ones which will actually create a very positive impact on society? So this fit the bill, right?
Yeah.
Emissions,
Right.
personal fulfillment, and having a significant impact in social and in the community where I'm living in. So
Right.
it fit all
And
the,
being a
all
big
the check
challenge.
boxes. And a big challenge, right?
Sure.
It's fun, right? I'm having time of my life. And through this process, I met so many kindred spirits here
Sure.
in Madison, be it on the senators and Congress people or city officials and other entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right. And it's fascinating. Other transportation providers too. Everybody
Oh, I
I
bet.
talk to.
Sure.
So far, I'm yet to come across somebody who thought this was a stupid idea. Right.
No.
Everybody was very, very
That would
supportive.
be weird. I imagine there's
right?
someone in a large truck somewhere claiming that climate change is a hoax or
hoax
something
kind of a
like
thing.
this.
But nonetheless, even there, right? So they challenge you. There are people who ask me, "Hey, when coal is being used to generate electricity,
Sure.
why do you think this is better?" So I walk them through
Right.
why this is still a better choice, kind of a
Right.
thing. So that is conversations. Conversations are good,
Right.
right? So, but in the main, though, I think we are a lot more receptive than we were 3 years back.
Sure.
Right? The choices
Sure.
are better. People are more well informed, right? So there is not as much misinformation,
Right.
right?
That's
That
safe
is
to say. Sure.
Safe to say. And probably one other reason for that is automobile manufacturers themselves have realized this is not a fad. Electric vehicles
No.
is the mainstay.
Right.
It is here. It's going to be staying. So now they have realized they need to quickly get into the game
Right.
to be relevant in the future. That's why if you look at any of the car companies, whether it is Volkswagen or Ford, to Mercedes, everybody is kind of into electric vehicles these days. So it may not be today, it may not be in 2020. 2020 should certainly see more choices. But I'm feeling very positive, very strongly that within another couple of years, latest by 2022, you'll actually see electric vehicles which are as affordable as internal combustion engine vehicles.
Sure.
Then it becomes just an economic thing. You're buying a better vehicle. It's no
Right.
longer a political debate
Right.
of which way to go. You're buying it because it is more economical for you.
Right. There's when I think of electric vehicles, and this is coming from a mechanical point of view, I compare them to an internal combustion. I think of all the designs and engineering that has to go into the engine of an internal combustion engine. It's all compromised, the whole engine, right from the intake manifold to the fuel injectors to the camshafts and all that,
Yep.
all compromised. The whole variable valve timing thing, that's the compromise, right?
Yep.
Constant and just infinite compromise.
Yep.
When I look at an electric motor, it's turning a crank. That's all it's doing, right? Which is
Exactly.
essentially what an internal combustion engine is doing, turning a crank. They're just exploding stuff or burning stuff to turn a crank with the engine. And outside of the tone of a good V8, an electric motor's got a beat in every way,
Yes.
right? So also, when I think about an electric motor, I think that's got to be dirt cheap to make compared to an internal combustion engine.
Absolutely. As you pointed out, right? If you look at the number of parts, an internal combustion engine may have about close to 2,000 parts.
Yeah.
When you think about an electric vehicle, there may be 20 moving parts. So that order of magnitude of difference
Right.
brings down weight as well, right?
Sure,
So if you
yeah.
think about your internal combustion car, most of the gas what you're burning is to move the dead weight
Right.
further because of the engine and everything what you
Sure.
have, kind of a thing.
Yep.
Here the batteries and the electric motor, they're so efficient. The transmission is so instantaneous.
Yeah.
Not only you got the torque, but the overall efficiency
Right.
is much higher, right?
Well, I'm saying, like, the internal combustion engine, I think, is 30% maybe on its
Yeah.
best day.
Yes. Here we are getting much order of magnitude, right?
Right.
So here is a recent example. Tesla is not the only one, but they're the ones who have been pushing the envelope in
Okay.
terms of the technology advances.
Sure.
So recently they were able to make the motor more efficient, and for one of the models they were able to add 65-mile range on top of what they already have without touching a single battery cell. By
Okay.
making the motor more efficient,
Oh, nice. Okay.
so they could draw more power
Sure.
or more mileage out of the same battery capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, battery capacity is significantly changing. The amount of investment that is going into battery technology
I bet
is
it's
bringing
insane.
in amazing advances.
Right.
So very, very soon you'll have a lot more capacity, lot more range, and a lot more affordability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And the weight, composite materials, when more stronger materials are coming together, you can do it at a much lesser weight, to
Mm-hmm.
a point where all of a sudden people are considering electric airplanes. Think
Oh.
about that. We're talking about electric airplanes because they can become affordable.
Sure.
So right now, actually, Alice is a plane which does 100 to 150 mile range. Somebody in Massachusetts bought about 20 of them. In 3 years, they will be actually flying in the regional hub. All
Really?
electric, 20 seaters going from here to Chicago, kind
Sure.
of a thing, right? You do not need to have.
Huh.
So because airlines is another big source of emissions, what we have. That's
Oh,
another-
yeah. I was at that
that's
flight
next
to North,
horizon.
that flight to North Carolina.
Yep.
There were 10 people on the plane, and it was a decent sized
Yeah.
plane. It was beyond a commuter size, and it blew my mind. The flight attendants were making jokes, right? You could just wait to move seats, right? And I was thinking, there's no way this airplane company made money on this flight.
That's it. They had to be in that business.
Yeah, that is crazy. So that's cool. An electric airplane still is kind of scary, but to me, But I imagine that's just because I have the perception. And that's got to change, right?
I'm sure airplanes were scary when they first came up, right? So the same thing.
I imagine in the end,
Right.
it's just turning a crank, right? Or turning a shaft. So
Yes,
nothing
exactly.
to it. Cool. So what's the biggest challenge that you have that you see in the next, let's say, 2020?
The biggest challenge is, once again, bringing all the stakeholders to work together.
Okay.
Right? So we already talked about the charging infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
There is policymakers need to come together. The city officials need to come together. Regulation need to kind of pay more attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to be, all the ecosystem players need to clearly understand and recognize this is a win-win.
Sure.
Right? That is the one that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
People generally tend to immediately jump to a conclusion that if somebody is coming in, it is at the cost of somebody else, kind of a thing.
Oh, sure.
So true. When you're asking me, that is true with any business model. If you're asking me what would be the cost or downside of the business models, what we are pursuing,
Sure.
which is shared mobility, that means the number of cars that will be sold
Right.
need to come down.
Right.
Car ownership will take a hit.
That's all right.
Just absolutely, that's what we are
Stuff-
talking about.
Business
right?
evolves, right?
Right.
Typewriter repair people are out of business
Exactly,
too.
right.
So
And also, I truly believe that cars, more fleet companies need to come into existence. So we are looking at more of the technology, but I don't think as alone, all by ourselves, we will have the wherewithal to put in all the vehicles that you need for Madison. So this is
Right.
where we need to work with other transportation providers,
Oh, gotcha.
the city and the utilities. So that's why I truly believe that there is nobody we are really competing with with respect to transportation as a service.
sure.
That's what we want to do, is truly make transportation as a
All right.
service.
I like that. That's pretty cool. So you're taking on so much.
It's fun though. It's fun.
I bet. So I want to ask you really quick, the
Yeah.
capital outlay
Yeah,
that your company has had to either put out or help with
sure.
had to have been a challenge, right? You're
It-
talking 30
So
Teslas plus
yeah,
charging.
actually,
and all that
right
kind of
now
stuff?
we have 42 Teslas so far because we are getting cars for the car share
Okay,
program
so
too.
42 Teslas plus chargers
Yeah,
plus just marketing and sales to get the
Oh,
cab
yeah.
companies to sign
right,
on. That wasn't
absolutely.
free.
No, it is not. So fortunately, because I'm sort of a proven entrepreneur, so it becomes a little bit easier once you are successful to get
Gotcha.
more investors to come and invest.
Okay.
So I have personally invested, other investors have come into play.
Gotcha.
And so we have done the first rounds, and now we continue to raise more money as we need to increase, right? So
Okay.
when we started, the numbers are out there. When we started with a $5 million investment to get the initial get-go.
Sure.
And now we'll be putting another $15 million of raise to kind of start scaling.
Is it 1.5 or 5.0?
1.5, the next step.
Okay.
And then another 25 like that. It keeps going
Sure.
in stages, kind of a thing. At each level, we kind of go to the next gear,
Sure.
so to speak.
I get it. I
Right?
get it. That's
So the
pretty
next
cool.
step is 15 million. Yeah.
All right. And that's happening in 2020?
Yeah, actually next month I want to start.
All right, they can send a check right now. All right.
Sounds fantastic.
That's cool. That's super cool. So before we go, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone that was considering starting a business, being an entrepreneur on their own, regardless of business, the type of business?
The most fundamental thing is ask yourself why.
Oh, I like it.
So why is more important than what?
Sure.
Once you figure out why is that you want to do,
Right.
the what comes to you. There are
I
a
get
lot
it.
of different ways to kind of meet your goals, but asking yourself, and second is, related piece is, never start a business with the explicit purpose of making money. Very few will become successful,
Right.
right? It has to be a passion. Find your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Find something that will make you work irrespective of how much money you're making.
Sure.
Then money is a byproduct of doing the right thing.
I like it. That's super cool. Shree, thank you for being on the show here. This has been awesome.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land, coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. If you are listening to this on the web, please like, subscribe, and share. My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for small businesses across the country, on the web at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for entrepreneurs in all stages of their business, on the web at drawincustomers.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Shree Kalluri of Zerology. Shree, thank you so much for being on the radio. This has been super cool. Find us airing on 103.5 Wednesdays at 1 p.m., Sundays at 2 p.m., as well as at sunpraymediacenter.com. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link, found at Draw In Custom.